In this video, I'll give you my final picks for UFC Vegas 89. This will be DraftKings strategy, lineup construction, and I have some free money for you, so make sure you watch until the end. As always, you can call me KUNATH'S. Let's make some money this week. We are met with a slate like no other this week. For UFC Vegas 89, the betting lines are closer on this card than they have been all year and that they will be all year. So it's very unique when you look at the betting odds versus how the fighters are priced on the slate. Just to give you an example, at the time of recording this, Daria Jelezniakova is the biggest favorite on the card, and she's only 8,800. Now, I'm not saying you have to play her, but it's rare when you can get the biggest favorite on the card, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fighters that are more expensive. We'll get into more of that later on, but first let's start with the value plays. These are going to be plays at 8,000 and below, fighters that you'll need in your lineups to make things work salary-wise, essentially your underdogs. And again, with the betting lines that they are, that indicates that the fights are probably going to be close. They can go one way or another, so we got a lot of dogs this week. Our most expensive underdog is Cody Gibson, coming in right at 8,000. He's essentially even money from a betting perspective right now. Now, you can go in here and look at the fight log, but it's not really going to tell you a lot of what you need to know, mostly because this is old information. These are fights from 2014, 2015. He was released from the UFC, fought a lot outside of the UFC. What you want to look at is that fight against Brad Katona. Now, against Brad Katona, in a loss, he scored 67 points. So if it went the other way, he gets the decision win. That's 97 points down at 7,700, slate-breaking performance. But what's most impressive is he did all of this without getting a knockdown, without getting a takedown, and without racking up a single second of control time. His volume and his pace are ridiculous, and he's fighting somebody in Miles Johns who tends to wait for guys. Miles Johns is going to stand pretty squarely right in front of him and wait to explode with a big counter shot, but Cody Gibson, with the advantage in pace, he also has the advantage in length. So what I expect from him, and we talked about this a lot in the predictions video, that's a more detailed look at all these fights. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. It was posted on the channel earlier this week, and it's going to be in the description. I see Cody Gibson using those advantages that he has, keeping a long jab in his face, coming over the top with the right hand, and working that lead leg with those low kicks that he likes to use so much. And this is a guy who's fully capable of really getting into a rhythm in there, and I think if he finds himself getting into this rhythm 3 or 4 minutes into the first round, he's going to put up another performance where he lands north of 150 strikes, which is going to be huge for him because Cody Gibson doesn't appear to have huge punching power, but at the same time, if he can land a strike that's 0.2, significant strike, another 0.2, and if he can keep that up for 3 rounds, he's going to score you north of 90 points. So Cody Gibson, somebody you want exposure to, somebody you want in your player pool, I would suggest getting overweight to the field. He's going to be a very popular underdog, don't get it twisted, but he's somebody who you should have in value play consideration because that 90-point ceiling is there. The next value play for me is the motor Muhammad Usman, because Muhammad Usman, he gets a lot of flack. Oh, he doesn't throw enough. Oh, he doesn't do this. Oh, he doesn't do that. I don't know if that's true. You look at the fight against Zach Paunga, he was subject to fighting a smaller guy, a faster guy, still finds the mark in the second round, knocks him out cold, scores 85 DraftKings points as a big underdog. Against Justin Tafa, he's at 8,000, gets you 79 points that night. That might have not been a slate-breaking performance, but 12 minutes of control time, if he can get on Mick Parkin for even 3 minutes, I think he's going to have a lot of success. But even against Jake Collier, he puts on a good performance where he gets rocked early, drops the first round, but just keeps working, and finds a way to win a decision. I think Muhammad Usman, if he wasn't Kamaru Usman's brother, would be somebody who was more highly touted than what he is now. He's a victim of namesake, but I'll tell you right now, Muhammad Usman doesn't get enough credit. He brings a unique mix of speed, athleticism, and cardio in a division where some guys are just sloppy. And I don't think Mick Parkin is necessarily all that sloppy, but I don't think he's necessarily all that athletic either. We saw him against Kyle Machado. It was not a great fight for him. He wins on the judges' scorecards. I went back and I watched that fight, and I thought that Mick Parkin won. I scored it for him, not only live, but after the fact as well. But what stood out to me was that there were a lot of instances where he was trying to get Kyle Machado up against the fence, and sometimes he would have success if Machado just kind of accepted position, but Muhammad Usman's not doing that. Usman will not spend 5 seconds with his back up against the fence in this fight. If he does anything well, it's denying the clinch. Now, he might get to the clinch on his terms and be in a dominant position, but he's not about to get backed up against the fence and then let Mick Parkin take him down. If anything, Muhammad Usman's going to get takedowns here, and I think he's going to win and start the card that way. So if you want to get off to a quick start, have the winner of the first fight in your lineup, I would suggest being overweight to the field on Muhammad Usman at 7,800. He hasn't lit it up from a DraftKings scoring perspective yet, but if he can get up early in this fight, like in the first round, and force Mick Parkin to fight from behind, I think that will leave some opportunities where you can get some takedowns, maybe land a shot that finishes the fight. I think the Muhammad Usman is a fine play down at his price. Now, at 7,700, Kurt Hollowbaugh's probably got you doing the money hands because he's going to win and it's probably inside the distance. Kurt Holobaugh is notoriously tough, very hard to put away. Trey Ogden is not some potent finisher in the UFC, and I think on the feet, he's got this in the bag. I don't think think that Trey Ogden has anything for him at range. I think he's going to walk him down, land a heavy strikes, and probably submit him in the second round. I think it will follow the same kind of fight script that we saw against Austin Hubbard. Now, Austin Hubbard is better at getting the fight to the ground than Trey Ogden. I don't know if he's better once the fight is down there than Ogden is, but he did a good job of getting takedowns, and it almost looked like Holobaugh didn't mind getting taken down because of how active he was off of his back. But when they were striking, there was a huge power discrepancy between the two. Holobaugh looked stiff and steady, but in a good way. He looked like when he was landing on Austin Hubbard, Hubbard didn't like that at all, and Hubbard is notoriously tough as well, so I'm surprised that Holobaugh was putting it on him that way, and if he can do that to a young guy like Austin Hubbard, who's known for his durability, he could probably do the same thing to Trey Ogden, who's durable in his own right, but he's also not fighting guys as aggressive as Holobaugh is. Holobaugh at 37 years old, like, it's time. You got to get these checks, and he knows that. If you just look at the fight log and you see all these losses, what do these losses tell you? Show money, show money, show money, show money, show money. No win money, no performance bonus, unless he got like some fight of the night that I'm not remembering right now. Chances are he's only gotten his show money and got his win money for the first time last time out against Austin Hubbard, so he's probably bonus hunting this week. I think he's the better athlete, I think he's the tougher fighter, I think he's the better striker, and I think he gets it done inside the distance at 7,700, one of my favorite underdogs of the week. Just want to touch on my boy Youssef Zalal real quick, somebody who I think is going to win. I like that he's the underdog. If you want to bet on him straight up, that's cool. He is not touching my DraftKings lineup. No way, no how. The fight is going to be far too competitive. Billy Q is going to have his moments. Youssef Zalal is somebody who I think is going to win, but not somebody who should be in value play consideration. Now, somebody who I think is going to lose, but could be in your value play consideration is UFC debutant Luis Pajuelo. Big power. If he wins, it's inside the distance, it's by knockout, and it's probably in the first round. Second round at the latest, and we know that the first round finish gives us 90 points. The second round finish would give us 70 points. Either way, knockdown plus the knockout, he probably scores well if he wins. Not only that, but he should come in significantly lower owned than a lot of the guys that we were just talking about. UFC debut, not too much name recognition, people like Fernando Padilla for good reason, but hitting that scoring ceiling is very possible for the UFC debutant here because he's going to fight somebody who's game. He's going to try to bang with him. Fernando Padilla's never been knocked out. There's a first time for everything. Nobody's been knocked out until they've been knocked out. So he's somebody who you should have in value play consideration. I don't think that he wins, but that doesn't mean you don't play him on DraftKings. Our next value play is Julian Erosa, and Juicy J is more boom bust than anybody on the slate. Juicy J has that heavyweight fight log. When you see here 6 points a first round loss, 4 points a first round loss, 97 points, 112, 101, 4 points, 131, 104, 19, 24, 2, 15, 82. You're at the point where if you have rostered Julian Erosa or at least targeted the fight that he's been in for the last 6, 7, 8 fights, then you're putting yourself in a really good chance of showing up in the top 10% of your contests because he's boom or bust. Personally, I think that he booms this week. One of the biggest reasons why I say that is because he is somebody who gets chinned a lot. He gets knocked out a lot, but Ricardo Ramos is not some knockout artist. Last time out, he's submitted by Charles Jourdain. I think that Julian Erosa presents way harder challenges on the mat than Charles Jourdain does. Knocked out Danny Chavez, probably isn't UFC caliber, knocked him out with a spinning elbow, which we talked about in the predictions video. Ricardo Ramos is the king of the spinning elbow, but it is a very low percentage technique. It's not something that you can really hang your hat on. You have to come all the way to his first fights in the UFC to find these knockdowns. I believe this one was a spinning elbow as well against Zahabi. But when you look at the losses, first round knockout, decision, first round submission. So most of the time when he's losing these fights, it's in the first round, and he's not showing off huge power that's probably going to put Julian Erosa down. So Julian Erosa has the upside. I also think that he's going to win. He's 7,300, somebody who you definitely want exposure to this week. And the last person that you're going to want in your lineup is obviously Justin Tafa. Justin Tafa just shows up in the optimal lineup one way or the other. First round knockout, first round knockout, first round knockout. He's putting the streak together, scoring 104, 103, 105, loses a decision here, even in the decisions, he's not scoring all that bad. He's still landing a lot of strikes, but you just know after the first round, that knockout upside is virtually gone. And another first round knockout here against Juan Adams back in 2020. So, were you all that impressed with Williams last time out? Probably not. Do you think that Justin Tafa can intercept him on his way in? There's a good chance of it. What happens when Justin Tafa wins? He scores 104 DraftKings points every time. You get yourself 104 DraftKings points down at 6,900. 6,800, you got a chance. And if he does score that down at his price and you don't have him, you don't have a chance. Something to consider. And that will do it for the value plays. Now we'll use these plays to build some lineups. Before we do, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. You know how the algorithm works. For the past couple of weeks, I said you guys can comment 2 underdogs, and if those underdogs win, you accurately predict them, I will shout you out in next week's video. Done. I'm done with it. Last week was absurd. I found myself with 30 screenshots. There was so much information. It would have took 6 minutes of the video for me to just shout you guys out. That's too much. So if you want to go give yourself a victory lap, you want to go say good job to the people last week, go check it out. 2 people actually called 4 underdogs, which is crazy. You guys are too good at the game now. The game is over. We can't play it anymore. It's kind of like when you make too much money and the government's like, nah, let me get some of that. That's what's happening. I'm the government right now. You can't play this game anymore because last week you were too good at it and would take far too long. I'm sorry, but it's over. Still let me know your underdogs in the comments though. I would love to see them. But anyway, let's build some lineups. We'll start with cash games, and this is the most stackable main event we're gonna have. We have a fight with Rose Namajunas. She's fighting Amanda Ribas this week in the main event. This fight is favored to go the distance. Of course, I think that Rose Namajunas is gonna win. If you follow me on Twitter, you will see that I put up a tweet because the UFC shared an Amanda Ribas highlight and a Rose Namajunas highlight. They do that for the fighters on the card in the lead up to the card, but it's so funny when you look at them side by side because for Amanda Ribas, it's her arm-barring Paige Van Zandt. And of course, her face is a bloody mess while she's doing it. On the other side, you have Rose Namajunas head kick knockout over Zhang Weili to win the title. So 2 different worlds that these 2 operate in. That's why I like Rose this week. But Amanda Ribas, if she's anything, she is tough and she's going to make Rose Namajunas work. She's probably going to take her down maybe once or twice. She's going to land a lot of strikes. She gives you that nice scoring floor. So this is why you need to stack the main event this week. From here, you can punt off one of the cheaper plays, somebody who's going to go the distance. I'm going to tell you right now, I like Jarno Errens as the punt play this week. There are fighters above him that are bigger underdogs than he is. He's at 6,800 and he's somebody who's gone the distance in his last 2 fights in the UFC. Errens doesn't throw a lot. He damn sure doesn't land a lot, but he's going to go out there and give you some effort. But down at 6,800 in your cash games, if he gives you anything north of 18 Draftkings points, you can't ask for any more. Now that you've got your punt and your stack, you're not completely out of the woods yet. And the reason why I say that is because you can't just come up here and grab favorites all willy-nilly. Like, I'm not going to grab Ramos. Lima is kind of on the fence for me. I like Edmen Shahbazyan here. 89.50 left over. I probably go with Payton Talbott. I think he's just the better fighter overall. He might be giving up a little bit in the grappling department, but I think he's going to find the chin. I think he knocks him out. If you wanted to come up to Williams, you could do that. If you wanted to go down to even somebody like Padilla, you could do that. There are a bunch of different ways you can go with cash games. And again, the cash games are your 50-50s, head-to-heads, double-ups, just little bankroll builders so that you can protect yourself when you're allocating some to your tournaments, and you can also grind up that bankroll by playing the game in a safer way. Now, if you want access to the DFS strategy guide, you want a lineup optimizer of your own, not only for cash, but mostly for your tournaments. It works for captain mode as well. You can find all of that at KUNATH'sMMA.com. This will give you some assistance and tools beyond just the video so that you can build more lineups yourself, add some more of your personal flavor. You're going to be able to get projections, the data model, DFS strategy guide, official betting article. We have 8 bets this week. All of that can be had for total access. If you just want a lineup optimizer, that's $5.99. That's on there as well, but total access gives you everything, best value for your money, best way to support the channel as well. So if you've liked what we've been doing on the channel for a while, you've been watching for a long time, you want to support the channel, you can go to KUNATH'SMMA.com, grab yourself a membership. That'll be linked in the description and in a pinned comment. Now let's build some tournament lineups. When it comes to building your tournaments, there are so many ways for you to get different this week. 13 fights, it's a lot. It's not like a 9-fight card, 10 fights, even 11 fights. 13 is pretty beefy. So we got all this beef to work with. Let's make some burgers. Well, you take somebody like Billy Quarantillo. You're never going to get a lack of effort from Billy Quarantillo. You're never going to see him outside of that fight with Edson Barbosa throw less than 100 strikes. He's going to look for takedowns of his own. He's going to give you effort from start to finish. And when you look at some of these DraftKings scores, 87 last time out's not crazy, but 125, 141, 109, 131, the ceiling is always going to be there. Let's plug him in at 8,600, see what else we got. I think that Edmen Shahbazyan by finish is on the table. If you look at these early fights that he had in the UFC, 98, 130, 101, 116, I think if he gets back to this form, even against Dolce Lungambula, when he's winning, he's scoring a lot of points. He had 95 right there. So when I look at him in this matchup, I see somebody who is younger, somebody who's faster, somebody who's a better striker, and somebody who's averaging 108 DraftKings points when he wins. He's favored, and he's somebody who I think is going to win. So if he has scored the way that he's scored in the past, he's somebody who you should have in your player pool this week. We'll plug him in at 9,100. I'll come down here and start plugging in some of the value plays now that we have 8,075 left over per fighter. Cody Gibson, although he doesn't move the needle all that much. Holobaugh is somebody who I want to put in there. Julian Erosa. Now we have 9,300. We can get basically anybody. Just to give you the look, you can grab Karl Williams, you can grab Namajunas if you wanted. I will say though, in tournaments, there is value, I think. There is merit to going 0% in your tournaments when it comes to exposure to the main event. Not something you typically recommend because the main event has the highest caliber fighters. These are the people who can finish fights at the highest level or at least have 5 rounds to work and can accumulate a lot of points. But we've seen Namajunas in these 5-round fights. She's not necessarily lighting it up. Like you see against Carla Esparza, 20 points in a fight that could have went either way. Worst fight of all time if she wins. 50 points in 5 rounds. Are you kidding me? Even last time out against Manon Fior, she scored 25 points. Yes, she broke her hand in the first round, but she won in the 3rd round. So I think if you asked Rose, she probably would tell you that she could have done more. She puts up 105 and 102 against Xiangwei Li, which is great, but at 9,200 with other fighters on this card who have more finishing upside, I think their ceilings are higher than 100 points. 63 points in a win against Jessica Andrade that goes the distance. She scored 79 points in a 5-round fight that went the distance against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. 79 points is flat out not going to cut it for you. 107, that's better. Now we're getting there. 119 against Michelle Waterson where she head kicked her and then she finished her on the mat. Yes, that's good. That's great. If she does something like that this week, she can hit that ceiling. So where I'm at with it is if you want to have some exposure to her, fine. But I think you're going to do much better when it comes to getting different by having no exposure to the main event. And that's not a flag that I will normally plant, but I will on this slate because I think the likelihood, even with 5 rounds to work in a matchup that I think favors her, the chances of Rose scoring south of 105 DraftKings points is much higher than the chance of her scoring north of 110. Meanwhile, when you look around her range, Karl Williams can break that for sure. Ricardo Ramos, if he does come up with a 1st-round knockout, can break that for sure. The Russian can do that. Fernando Padilla could do that. Edmen Shahbazyan could do that. We see that he's averaging 108 in fights that he's winning. Billy Q, of course. Sorry, I thought that was on the screen, but you get the point. There are fighters on this card who I think have much higher scoring ceilings and not as likely to burn you at what I'm assuming is going to be way higher ownership than it should be. She's in the main event. She's going to go over-owned for her production. And if you let some people out there talk you into Amanda Ribas, that's on you. Is it impossible for her to win? No. But is she going to be a bloody mess 7 minutes into the fight? Yes, and I think that's really going to hurt her chances of winning these rounds because it's the Ultimate Bleeding Championship. Now let's blow that up. Let's build something else. We'll come down here. Let's say you did want to go with Justin Tafa. He's again in slate breaking position. Let's say you want to go with Pajuelo. Let's say this is going to be the lineup where we just get the heaviest hitters we can. Guys with knockout upside. I think that Julian Erosa would have to be in there and Holobaugh would have to be in there. You notice now that we have 4 underdogs. Look at the average remaining salary. You could do whatever you want. At this point, I'd probably come up here to Nguyen as somebody who's going to go under owned and grab Edmen Shahbazyan, 2,100 left over on the salary. But listen, if you were to get 1, 2, 3, 4 knockouts here, Edmen Shahbazyan does what he does and Nguyen pays off his salary. You can leave 2,100 salary on the table. You'll be perfectly fine. You'll be in prime position to win, especially if you trot something like this out into a single entry contest. Let's blow that up. Let's build something else. Let's say you went with the motor, Muhammad Usman. You came here to Payton Talbott, who I'm very high on. Let's go with Cody Gibson again, just with that volume. I think you could grab somebody at this point like Fernando Padilla and feel good about it. Daria, feel good about it. 8,400 left over. I'm going to land a Holobaugh, leave 700 salary on the table. I've got 1, 2, 3 underdogs here. Cody Gibson by fight time is probably going to be the favorite because everyone and their mother is on Cody Gibson, myself included, and my mom, believe it or not. And I'll give you one more to give you a look. Let's say you went with Karl Williams, who I'm not low on by any means. I think that Karl Williams can smash this week. I just haven't put him in a lot of these lineups. Shaleniakova, the biggest favorite on the card, but the 7th most expensive fighter on the card. Let's plug her in. Let's come down here to Juicy J. Let's come up here to Cody Gibson. Let's grab Payton Talbott. We have one more. You can plug in any of those guys that we were talking about before, any of the underdogs, maybe Pajuelo in this lineup. Left 800 salary on the table, faded the main event, got different enough. I like this. Again, all the additional tools can be found on the website, KUNATH'sMMA.com. That is going to be your lineup optimizer, your DFS strategy guide, ways for you to be better at the game. And we will wrap up with our pick'em partner here, Underdog Fantasy, who will give you free money to play on their platform. I know last week the Underdog Fantasy picks were terrible. They were terrible for me, just like they were for you. Sometimes things don't go your way, and some of you in the comments were highly upset. I get it, but I also get that they give you free money to play on the platform by using promo code KUNATH or hitting the link in the description. So how big of a deal is it? But regardless, it's a fun game to play, especially when the NFL season rolls around and you want to do the DraftKings style drafts like they have, or you wanted to play best ball, or you wanted to just do pick 'em higher or lower. That's fine too. But I have narrowed it down to three entries that I like this week. I like Payton Talbott to win by knockout, so I'm going to put him in there and get my 2.5x multiplier. I like the Fernando Padilla fight to basically go lower than 2.5 rounds, and I like the Ricardo Ramos fight to basically go lower than 2 rounds. Him or Julian Erosa are going to go down in round 1, round 2 at the latest. I feel the same way for the Padilla fight, and I think that Payton Talbott is a much better striker against a very hittable target. That gives us a 15x multiplier if that hits. You can use insurance too, which would have saved you 2 weeks ago and made you quite a bit of money, because we had the 100x here. I don't know what the insurance was, but we did go 4 out of 5 on that 100x slip, so it probably wasn't that much different. Maybe 40x what you would have put in, so you can do the insurance if you want. Now we will use the standard because we're greedy when it comes to Underdog. I'm fine with that. We'll do 20 for 300 there. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy. You could use promo code KUNATH, that's KUNATH. That'll be linked in the description and in a pinned comment. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm, and I will see you next week. Let's go.